Howdy To, this is Austin Lightfeather, Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, and Oklahoma Choctaw Nation. So I'm going to talk about my book, Autism: The Fight Inside, written under my slave name Bower, Bower, which I have no relation to Germans by blood. And I'm going to talk about my book, Autism: The Fight Inside, for the viewers out there who may not know. Autism: The Fight Inside was a project that I was committed to and something that I knew needed to be written. And no one would edit it for me, so I had to do it myself, which even took longer, but I knew it had to be done. Autism: The Fight Inside is about my story and my life while struggling in the system ran by white people that use the system to gain crutches over those that are minorities and those that have developmental disabilities or social developmental disabilities or genetic disabilities, and it's something that needed to be addressed immediately. I had suffered the hand of the system from all the way from the local police to the state police to the regional mental health epic centers regarding discrimination and violations that they were constantly getting away of with. And I had spent a year in a place I call the Nazi Hospital, the Lincoln Regional Center, which is written, I write about in my book. The Lincoln Regional Center is a state psychiatric hospital that is primarily ran by CEOs and DHHS, white um, directors and CEOs. And their policies are very profound and they're geared towards full bed restraints. They follow outdated laws. My book actually helped create a lot of noise that got the CEO and CEF forced to resign by the state government. And you may ask, well, what happened after that? What happened after they were fired? And I'm going to tell you. I was targeted in the community of Lincoln. I was um, laughed at. I was even stalked by state employees who tried to make my life a living hell when I was trying to start up a small business to try to help people and see the truth for what it is. And through it, I had several suicide attempts, one of which I almost committed suicide, and 3 out of 4 natives die of suicide a year, and I almost became a statistic. I am Choctaw Native, and on my mother's side, I'm Siksika, which is Blackfoot, if you didn't know. Um, and the local police targeted me all the way to the Omaha police, to the Omaha Correctional Center for the jail, Omaha DCCC, which is the jail, not the Omaha State Facility, but the local county facility. Places like CHI Health, Lasting Hope Recovery Center, targeted me as well. Put me on full beds, gave me shots. One of the shots they gave me almost killed me. I went into a comatose state for 3 days, almost lost my life. Um, and the shot was actually on my allergy list, and they weren't supposed to give it to me. And then um, from there, I was in Beatrice, BSDC, where I was assaulted by 15 staff while the Beatrice police watched me being choked and beat up. Um, Flipped on the sofa by 15 people, laughed at and mocked, and then they lynched me and took me to the jail. When they took me to the jail, they put me in the Beatrice Gage County Jail, where I was there for 18 days. I didn't have any charges for 18 days. Um, and the due process is 48 hours, and they violated my due process. I'm still battling that in court right now. Um, the sheriff's department for Beatrice lied to my mother, saying that They were going to provide care services, but it happened to be 400 miles away outside of Beatrice. And so, from what I understand, they were basically going to try to take me somewhere alone to do some devastating harm to me. Um, these are things that I went through after I published my book. The Ninth Amendment is supposed to protect me from these kinds of attacks. The Ninth Amendment specifically states that you should be protected from using your first five amendments, your Second Amendment, Third, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth Amendment constitutional rights. The Ninth Amendment is to protect you from using those, and I'll go into detail what those are for you. So the First Amendment, there's five of them. It's freedom of press, which is writing a book; freedom of speech, which is writing a book; freedom of peaceful assembly; freedom of grievance, which is writing a book or grieving the government; and freedom of religion. Second Amendment is the freedom to bear arms. Your Third Amendment is the freedom to not have a soldier come into your housing quarters to take over and live in your house, making rules and orders of how they live, just like Nazi Germany did to their civilians during the Holocaust in Berlin and other regions in Germany. Your Fifth Amendment, well, let me get to the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is protection of searches and seizures, violation, protection of having someone look into your paperwork, having government orders issued, warrants without probable cause, federal patient rights and liberties such as HIPAA to protect your personal private rights. Your Sixth Amendment, here I go again. Your Fifth Amendment is freedom to not incriminate yourself during an investigation. And your Fifth Amendment is also protection of due process of law under the Fifth Amendment. Your Sixth Amendment is your right to have a speedy trial, your right to have fair counsel if you cannot be awarded counsel by money for your own counsel, and your right to have a jury trial of your peers, which is most often biased and arbitrary, because usually in mostly white regions such as Beatrice, which I go to district court, I'm going to be having a jury of my peers, which will end up being most likely 12 white jurors, because Beatrice is held by white people. Their police are white, their civilians are white, their construction crews are white, their restaurant, dine-in and dine-out employees are white, their residential families are white, and being Native, obviously I'm going to have a hard time getting a fair trial with everything. And then your Seventh Amendment is a very important one. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. We'll get back to the Seventh Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is to be free from cruel and unusual punishment, such as being in a cold cell, such as even living conditions when you have a property and property rights. Your Ninth Amendment is the freedom to practice all of these constitutional rights without being punished for it, which is what essentially Nebraska did to me. They punished me, they beat me down, they drug me through the dirt. They had illegal use of policing. I had a provider named Crystal Holston and Melissa Blackmore of Autism Centers of Nebraska when I still have them, but when I had my developmental disability services here in Lincoln, I was in a DDS home called a EFH, Extended Family Home Services, on 1820 Glen Circle Drive. While I was there, without my legal guardian knowing about it, Crystal Holston was hired, and Melissa Blackmore, and then a person named Diane, who is the director of ACN Autism Center in Nebraska, which there's two locations. There's one in Omaha and there's one in Lincoln. Melissa Blackmore gave the keys to the officer after Crystal Holston had provoked me targeted me, egged me on with all white neighbors on 820 Glen Circle Drive, Lincoln, Nebraska 68522, which is basically a cul-de-sac, which means it's a dead end area. She lied to police, and the white police came, brought guns on me. An officer named Officer Wagner tried to get me outside alone. My assumption was he was probably going to try to kill me on the front property of the lawn. The Lincoln Police Department did a very poor job handling the situation. There's an officer named Sergeant Munn, David R. Munn, who had been targeting me and on multiple occasions talked to my mother and was dishonest with my mother and wrote tickets based on things white people did to me. And it's very frustrating to know this is the kind of behavior that they took out on me, acting like children, being in wrongful moral situations. And then Vice, which is the higher up of the police in Nebraska, they're detectives. An investigator named Nate Hill knew about a target and a attempted murder on my life on 48th and Highway 2 at the St. Clair gas station. And there was video footage. He was involved in an investigation and didn't notify me, didn't notify my mother that my life was in danger. And this individual that set me up to murder me is still walking the streets to this day. Her name is Destiny King. She's related to a person named Jessica King, who is involved in a case with my friend Henry Jones where she snitched on Henry Jones and tried to make it look like it was me, but I was able to get the right documentation paperwork. I was able to get things processed, and I was able to show people that it wasn't me that told. So I was able to dig out of that hole also that LPD set up for me. And so the Lincoln Police Department has legitimately targeted me and belittled me for a long time, and it's really sad because their mission statement is, hey, we're here to help you, hey, we care about you. But from what I've experienced, the Lincoln Police Department and state trooper sector of Nebraska hasn't wanted anything other than harm for me. When I was at BSDC in Beatrice, the Beatrice State Developmental Center, the state police came there and lynched me and took me there after the second day I was there and took me back to Lincoln. And my mom's like, what's going on? And Justin Bullard, the doctor, had lied to my mother, and the Beatrice facility had lied about making attempts to phone calls to my mother, but my mother got the phone records and she was able to see that they were being dishonest. And so they retaliated against me and very much so tried to kill me. And yet obviously I'm a person of color, so I'm the one on trial. That's just how it goes. And it shouldn't be. And it's very sickening, very sad. Things I've experienced and gone through are so disgusting and heart-wrenching that it would make anyone cringe. I actually went to Washington to have a lobbyist for those with autism, explaining to congressmen about how Nebraska is violating federal laws and constitutional state laws of those with autism and those of color that are minorities in the system. Excuse me. This system has plagued my heart, put many scars on me spiritually. LPD targeted me in 2009, and that's what my book's about. It's about LPD using a native, when I'm native, who had targeted me and manipulated situations and made lies and fictitious stories to people about who I am. And so for 6 years of my life, I spent 6 years in a state correctional center where I had been set up to be murdered. on 2 occasions. I was punched in my mouth by another native who we now reconciled. We're actually friends now, believe it or not, And he had hit me in my mouth based on the manipulation that the state and the city police and my co-defendant had manipulated many different things. I've had to pay. Um, I've had to pay about $1,000 in restitution for things that the Lincoln Correctional Center lied on me about, like sprinkler heads I didn't break, clothing I didn't tear, pillows that went missing. They essentially lied on me, and I ended up paying up to $1,000 in restitution of my own money. They did a very good job on traumatizing me. I spent 4.5 years in solitary confinement. The administration put me on involuntary PC, not voluntary, meaning no matter what I did, I couldn't get off it. And involuntary PC means you're on PC for 4 months and they review you to take you off as a unit manager and unit administrator and warden and the captain and the major. People like that make those higher decisions in the mental health individuals. And there are some people at the Lincoln Correctional Center during the time that actually worked with my father, and he's Choctaw Native as well. And so I experienced heavy discrimination. I asked to get off involuntary PC multiple times. They wouldn't allow it. I spent 4.5 years in solitary confinement to the point where my skin had lost all of its color. I had my pigmentation had turned fully white, and I looked like a white piece of chalk on a chalkboard, and I looked like a white piece of paper, and I'm not white at all. It took about 3 years for my skin to actually get its pigmentation back. After I was released from solitary confinement on the day I was discharged, I experienced multiple bloody noses and intolerant police officers would target me and my mother, and the trauma was just undeserving, and so it motivated me to write a book about the truth. In my book, all the names have been altered, so there's no snitching there. And I wrote the book, Autism, The Fight Inside, because it's a metaphor and it's a literal statement. It's a metaphor that it's a fight inside having autism, and it's a literal form of actually fighting a system. And I was accused of being a white boy by the guards and the staff, and I'm not white at all. There's a white correctional sergeant in LCC after visitation that used to pick on me after my mom would leave my visit, and he would tell me that he's going to have sex with my mother right in front of other COs, saying, I'm going to bang your mom and I'm going to do your mom and there's nothing you can do about it. And this is a white country boy, and this is the kind of behavior these whites display. They're not good people. And when you give a 18-year-old power over another man or men, that's just, they didn't do anything to earn or make merit to have that kind of power. They didn't go through 1 year to 5 years of a class. They didn't go through psychology courses. They just were 18, signed up, and got the job. And so the system is very whack. It's out of whack. And I've experienced that firsthand. And part of my journey was moving to Oregon. I moved to Eugene, Oregon, and I lived in Springfield, Oregon for a little bit. And I was at the Mackenzie Willamette Hospital at one point because I attempted suicide out there after a white provider who said they're Blackfoot Native. They're not even Native. Sick as the term. And on Thanksgiving Day, this white woman said, "You're just work to me, bro." That night, I attempted suicide by swallowing, I think, about 400 pills. And I was sent to the Mackenzie Willamette Hospital. I had developmental disability services in Oregon. And I was targeted quite a bit in Oregon by the providers. It was interesting. They had a dog and an alarm set up, and I thought it was weird they had such interesting alarm system. Like they were really like doing self policing type of deals. They had cages that were big enough to fit men. Pretty interesting. And I experienced a lot of hatred when I came back to Nebraska. I was in Omaha at the Emmanuel Health Clinic, and they sent me to the Lincoln Regional Center. Even though they knew my trauma, I had a German doctor, and imagine that, right? And I had German staff that all said, yes, he needs to go to the Lincoln Regional Center. And I went there right after Oregon, and that was basically a welcome back gift of, here you go, we're going to put you through hell. And when I was in the Lincoln Regional Center, the staff laughed at me, targeted me, provoked me, did everything they could to get me on full beds. Staff would yell at me. And these are white staff, these are white providers. There were some black staff that I would consider police that took that. There were some black staff at LRC that acted more white than the white staff. And I called them out for that, because I'm a person of color. I'm a Homa Okla, which is red people, or Homa Hatak, which is red man. Actually, Choctaw, that word derives from red people, and that's my tribe. And so I just wanted to share my testimony of what I had been through, why I wrote my book, what I went through after writing my book, the experiences of discrimination from police, from the Victoria Suites Inn, from the Clover Suites Inn, which is now Annabelle Gardens. It's a hotel. Both are hotels, Victorian Suites Inn and the Red Roof Inn, all hotels. Vice was involved in those places when I was being set up to be basically murdered. Vice officer Nate Hill had been in constant involvement with these situations and knew of the targeting on my life and didn't do anything to stop it, didn't want to help me at all. And so it provoked me into making undistinctful, unthoughtful, unmoral decisions based on the hatred I've received. And I made verbal threats at times, and I've had situations where police had tried to lynch me previous to that. And there's a lot of white people in this community that are really mad at me because of the changes I made while having autism and the positive changes I made. So I have court on my mother's birthday in Lincoln, Nebraska on July 13th, which is her birthday, which I think is pretty disgusting that the white courts would decide to pick my mother's birthday. But you won't believe this. They actually picked May 11th as the original date, which is my sister's birthday. So they went from my sister's birthday to my mother's birthday, and that's outright discrimination. And then I have court in Beatrice on July 2nd. I have a related video with their address. If you want to come down and support me, if you want to be there for me, if you want to travel to Beatrice, Nebraska, I would hope that you would, just to, support me. They don't let you have cell phones in the Gage County District Court building. They make you keep them in the car. And so I won't be able to bring my cell phone in there, and neither will you. And so I just need as much support as possible. Again, that's on July 2nd. And again, I have to go in front of another white judge. And, I'm going back to Beatrice, and Right now I'm on bond, which I shouldn't even have to deal with this case at all. This is full right discrimination. And the sheriffs out there really wanted to really do some foul things to me. And so I just want my Choctaw tribe to know what's going on. I want you to be fully aware of who's been involved. I wrote you letters with names. I communicated that with you so you could protect me better. Um, I wrote you addresses and things of that nature, just so that way you could have a better idea of what's going on and how you could protect me and look out for me. To my Choctaw tribe, I want to say thank you so much for making these things possible. I live in an apartment which is on the foundation of a reservation for the Omaha Macy tribe, which protects me because local police can't just come here and do foul things to me because of the fact this is considered federal land at this point. And me being native and things of that nature protects me. Today, what bothered me is there was a white woman who stole a bag of the donations and took them in her car. And so the Macy tribe won't even see those. There are a bunch of toys and clothing, and I witnessed her take them all, and you have to pay for those. Those are proceeds. Those are donations put into the building to be sold. And so I just want you to be aware that someone stole donations. It was a white woman. Um, and I'm very disturbed by that whole notion. And there was an older white woman out here that's been talking to me a couple times. Said her family comes from the German bloodline, and they're all Christians, and she's friends with the natives, and I just don't buy it. I'm not buying it. She's looking through items, going through everyone's papers, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I think you should know that, Omaha Reservation, that you have white people out here ever since I moved in, looking through all this paperwork, and then I found out that she's the mother to a Lincoln police officer. Her name's Ellis, and she said that her family came from Germany, and I just think it's pretty strange that this white woman, this young lady in a vehicle, was driving around, doing circles around a block, and then pulling in, then pulling out, and then she takes the white lady, puts her in a car, and steals these items from what belong to you. I think that needs to be properly investigated, which LPD is not going to do. We know that. That's thievery. Those are donations for our natives. And so, with that being said, this is the Austin Lightfeather, Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, Oklahoma Choctaw Nation. I'm a civil rights activist. I'm a rap artist. I make lyrics. I'm an author that won awards for my book. I'm a previous small business owner, and yeah, I really care about my Homa Okla, my red people, and I care about my Lusa Okla, which means black people. And so, keep fighting a good fight and stay strong and be careful out there when you protest. I'm praying for every last one of you protesters against this system that's been corrupt for a long time. Thank you, Yakoki. God bless all of you, and Yakoki for watching my video.